Hi guys, it's your smart older sister and welcome to what's probably going to be the channel's last video this year. I don't know when exactly you're watching this, but I'm posting this in the first week of December, which is about the only free time I have left until the new year. So, how are your stress levels right now? If you're anything like me, my cortisol shoots through the roof during this season, but in a weird way. On one hand, there's just so much to do for most of us, right? Not just at work, but in preparation for the holidays. Your social calendar starts filling up, and even in late November, I start getting the daily thought of, wow, there aren't enough hours in one day. On the other hand, holidays can be quite beautiful. Many of my best euphoric memories have come from that period of mid December to early January, so I'm both looking forward to it and dreading it. I initially didn't think I'd post any video this December just because of time constraints, but after a few conversations where I was asked about how I manage the holidays, I thought, why not? If you've gotten to my age, you probably have your own system that works for you, which is great. But if you're anything like some younger friends, students, younger people in general whom I've mentored, maybe you need a few ideas from someone who understands just how acutely overwhelming Decembers can be. If that's the case, then this video is for you. So, first things first, the holidays are already stressful enough without you being ill. So, do your best to stay healthy. Some things are beyond your control, and for some of us, illness or injury can occur this season despite our best efforts. It's incredibly cold, there are viruses swirling around, you might take a fall. I get it. One December a few years ago, I had the joy of having a horrific sinus infection and a no sleep for 3 days shoulder tendonitis episode at the same time. So sometimes life just wants you to slow down, and sometimes it is not a request. What I'm saying is, the holidays have a unique way of leading us into health pitfalls. More events and celebrations mean you're eating more and usually rich once in a while foods. You're probably drinking more too, and hey, maybe this is the time of the year you let yourself get on other recreational substances. But you still have to work if you're like most of us, right? So, like me in my 20s, you probably believe in work hard, play harder, and you're so used to it that you can get by on Starbucks and 3, maybe 4 hours of sleep until Christmas Day, after which you're sure you can get 2 days worth of sleep before the New Year's cycle starts, right? You tell yourself that's just what the holiday season is always like, and it probably doesn't help that all of that is captioned as part of enjoying the season. I'm not saying that you need to go on a diet during the holidays or that you have to hit the gym like it's beach season. I'm just saying that you shouldn't use the fact that it's the holidays to speed run yourself into the emergency room. On that note, if you're already feeling poorly, see your doctor. Don't put it off. Go to the dentist, complete any follow ups your doctor asked you to do. January is the busiest time of year for most doctors, just from personal observation. And many of the doctors I know have told me that they wish their patients had been more responsible during the holidays. And I guess that's the key word in this discussion: responsibility. I know all of this sounds boring, but I think of it like car maintenance. Your body is what gets you to where you want to be. And if you want it to keep doing that, you have to take care of it. Stay hydrated. Drink your medicines and vitamins. Don't eat until you throw up. Put a cap on your alcohol and vices. and make time to work out. You may not have time or energy to go for your daily hour-long morning run, but there are thousands of 10-minute videos on YouTube for cardio, strength training, yoga, dance, whatever you want. During my peak workaholic days, I did the math and found that I could still make an hour every day that was me time. If I counted workout time, skincare time, and my 20 minutes of breakfast to watch a sitcom. In that same vein, getting sleep is me time. There are thousands of studies that show that getting enough good sleep is great for you. And trust me, I know how hard it is to get good sleep. I was diagnosed with insomnia in the third grade, and I've struggled with it for decades now, especially as an adult with multiple professional and personal responsibilities. Almost a decade ago, one of my brilliant doctors talked to me about the organ clock in traditional Chinese medicine. Now, she was trained and highly qualified in Western medicine, but some events in her personal life convinced her to get additional training in traditional Chinese medicine. And what she shared was honestly life-changing for me. So this is how it works. If you have a tight schedule and only 6 hours to sleep at night, try to arrange your schedule so that you're asleep from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. If it's really tight and you only have 4 hours, make sure that they're between 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. The explanation is really long, and I'll just link references in the description. But essentially, these hours in the night are the ideal time for your body to go into repair mode, which happens during deep sleep. If you've read studies about circadian rhythms, again, I'll link in the description. Sleeping before midnight into the early morning does appear to be best for your body, but traditional Chinese medicine is very specific about the hours. Just from my personal experience, getting sleep just from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. beats getting 8 hours of sleep where I've gone to bed at 2 a.m. or later in terms of how I feel. I generally feel more energetic and alert for longer, and that's without having to guzzle too much caffeine. So, excepting New Year's Eve, when I'm really up until dawn, I try to stay on an 11 p.m. bedtime, and if I have a lot to do the next day, I'm usually up at 4 a.m. because I feel better and do better sleeping early and getting up early rather than sleeping late and getting up late. Now, if you work the night shift, obviously everything I just said doesn't apply to you. So your goal might just be to get 7 hours of sleep, which is fine. The bottom line of this entire segment is that you need to make time to rest. Trust me, it's much harder to get sucked into the holiday maelstrom when you're feeling good and centered. So from food to sleep to skincare, take care of yourself. And if after all of that, the only word that caught your attention was skincare, that's a whole other video, short version, sunscreen, and sheet masks. If you do 2 things for your skin every day, that should be sunscreen in the morning and a sheet mask at night, and you'll be golden. Moving on. Gift giving is not really at the top of my love languages, but I always make the effort for people I care about at least twice in a year. Their birthday and Christmas time. I think birthdays are when you have to go all out, and it's imperative to give people really thoughtful gifts. Take note, thoughtful gifts, not necessarily expensive gifts. One of the gifts I have to this day is a purple Hubba Bubba case that my youngest brother filled with coins when we were children. He'd seen me tossing a coin in a wishing well a few months before my birthday and thought he should give me as many coins for all my wishes. It's hard to give thoughtful gifts for everyone on your Christmas list all at once. My personal Christmas list has 49 people on it, and that's just family and friends. That doesn't include clients, colleagues, and employees. I don't know about you, but I don't have time to think carefully about each individual gift. For that reason, I'm big on gifts that follow the holiday theme or generally please everyone. So, for example, all of my adorable nieces and nephews are getting Christmas sweaters and Christmas themed rainbow makers for their windows. My parents are getting Santa and Mrs. Claus sweaters and their favorite perfumes. My siblings are all getting vintage film cameras so that they can take photos of their sweater coordinated kids and our parents. Favorite cousins and female friends? Beauty boxes with skincare for the season. Hardworking employees? Premium hot chocolate in fancy bitch Christmas tins. I don't believe that you need to give each and every person one special gift unique to them for Christmas. That's for their birthday. However, and while we're on that point, let's just put it out there for the cheapos who need shaming. Stop rolling together the Christmas and birthday gifts of people born in December, even if they are born on the 25th. It's not funny or clever, and unless you're buying them a car or tickets for a luxury vacation, you can't rationalize an item being expensive to justify just getting them one thing. Again, this is why I think Christmas or winter themed holiday gifts make sense. So take my housekeeper, who was born on the 25th of December. This year, she gets her bonus, her fancy bitch hot chocolate, and a neat little tote bag that her niece says she's been saving up for. Now, you may think that all of this applies if you're rolling in cash, but what happens if you're struggling? Believe me, I was an adherent of the envelope budgeting method from 2007 until 2019. I was heavily in debt and scraping by until about 2017. I understand having dozens of people that you want to show love to, but you don't have the financial means. It's a bit trickier and you'll have to be more creative, but you can still pull it off. So, what I do, write down your list of people, allot the maximum amount you can spend on gifts total, and divide by the number on your list. Then hunt for gifts in that price range. So, for example, one year, all the ladies at my then workplace got Christmas themed earrings that we wore at our office Christmas party. They were really cheap, and I got them all at a holiday bazaar that popped up near my workplace a few days before the party. But the thought was appreciated. And whenever we get together during Christmas time, we wear those earrings. On that point, I don't know if you have the patience to still shop in person or if there are holiday bazaars near you. The last few years have really made me embrace online shopping, and if you keep your eyes out, some really good deals are offered even before December, like the 11/11 Singles Day sale, which is pretty popular in Asia, or Black Friday in North America. Previously, it took me about an hour to knock out half of my Christmas list, so I don't know if I'm going back to in person shopping for the bulk of my gifts. For big groups of people, one thing I also did when I was a working student was bake. Gingerbread cookies are obviously a crowd favorite this time of year, But I found that it doesn't really matter what type of baked good. People will accept stuff that tastes good and is wrapped nicely. I mean, if it tastes good, even nice wrapping is optional. One time I ran out of ingredients for gingerbread and just made key lime white chocolate cookies for my law school classmates. I didn't have time to wrap them and just put them in Ziploc sandwich bags. Not a cookie was left within half an hour of me arriving. If all else fails, sit down and write a Christmas card. I feel like in this age that isn't really done anymore, which is why I think it's so special. People will appreciate that you sat down and took the time to address them during such a hectic period, even if it is just to wish them a good holiday season. Have you ever tried counting the number of times you've burst into tears or screamed with rage during the holiday season? Or have you stopped to figure out how many of those shots of whiskey have just been you sublimating your desire to strangle an aunt at this year's clan Christmas weekend? Maybe you're the rare creature that lives for the high drama of the holidays, in which case, congratulations. Skip right on to the next segment, my love. This portion is not for you. I know that the holidays are when you're supposed to make peace, give love, and cherish your nearest and dearest. But let's be real. For many of us, holidays are about enduring in some way other people whom we would rather not deal with in our day to day lives, but whom we are still tied to. So that could be your ex, who is also the other parent of your kids, or your perfect sibling whom you've envied all your life, or your great aunt who never has anything nice to say to you. And even when you like each other on a fundamental level, getting together with family can mean confronting your differences head on. For example, in my family, we're a religious mix of Christian, Jewish, and Muslim. Can you imagine the conversations we've been forced to have over Israel Palestine over the last few weeks? I can already hear the passive aggressive prayers that are going to be said before we even break bread. So, what do we do? First, don't be drawn into discussions or debates about contentious issues. As someone who comes from a family where many of us argue, negotiate, and lobby for a living, I learned pretty young that it's never very rewarding to argue with someone for free, especially since learning how much my time is worth through billable hours. I'm not going to spend 45 minutes pointlessly arguing with a relative over dinner when I'm not on the clock. Some people think that it's an outmoded rule of etiquette that we shouldn't discuss politics or religion in social gatherings. But I think there's wisdom in that convention. For example, do you really want to get into it with your uncle over how his support of the Conservative Party is regressive and misguided while you're seated during your cousin's wedding breakfast? If you're a decent person, obviously not. You're not in the halls of Congress or in court or in a philosophy class or at a public hearing over a proposed ordinance. Apply that logic to your holiday gatherings. As worthy as your cause may be, you are not there to make a case for human rights. You are there to catch up with family you haven't seen all year and to speculate over that one cousin who refuses to admit she got a nose job. So avoid starting noble fights and deflect whenever someone tries to duel with you. So, for example, one of my favorite aunts is unfortunately a hardcore Trump supporter. Whenever we see each other, she tries to engage with me about her president, and last time even dropped this bizarre pro Trump presidency book with the demand that I read it. Now, I knew something like this was going to happen, so I said, Auntie, I can do that later, but for now, I'd rather you showed me how you prepared this stuffing. Since she never misses a chance to correct me about what I'm doing in the kitchen, she could not resist, and I finally got the turkey stuffing recipe that we cousins have been coveting since 1997. Following that point, it really helps to have a ready response for questions or statements you know are going to be fielded at you. And the general tenor should be to divert the conversation to neutral ground. More than differences in opinion or perspective, the most common landmine is plain criticism. If you're a woman, most of the time it'll be about your body, followed by either your lack of a partner or lack of children. That's the one for me. It's my lack of children that personally offends some people in my family. When it comes up, I just laugh it off because I genuinely find it funny that they want me to have children when I'm so involved in the lives of my siblings' children and even my cousins' children. One aunt has never brought it up again after I pointed out that I'm sending two of her grandchildren to school. And I can do that precisely because I don't have kids of my own yet. But if you can't laugh it off, I find that having a prepared response that shuts down the criticism is the best thing to do. One of my favorites is from one of my cousins who's often berated for her weight. She just says, I know, right? And then proceeds to ask them for money for a gym membership or a nutritionist. Not only does it stop them from going on, but they can't get away from her fast enough because she's asking for money. Like, she's seriously asking for money. Like, thank you for your feedback. Please give me money so I can correct the issue. One year, she got enough money from our aunts and uncles that we booked ourselves a fancy dinner because of it. One recent suggestion I read in the New York Times is to say, I'm not accepting unsolicited feedback about my body at this time, or something like that, which is a little short, but is definitely effective at stopping the criticism because it points out subtly that the person is being rude. And to be clear, it is rudeness, even if it is coming from a place of concern. I have the great blessing of coming from a family where in our hearts, I believe we genuinely care about each other and want the best for each other. But you're there to express that feeling, right? Not to point out ways in which someone might be lacking. We can save that for after the new year when we're listing resolutions. This is why I do my best to avoid getting angry when relatives are rude, and I just flip it back around. Because if they genuinely care about you, they will engage in a positive way. So the last time my meanest aunt said that I looked tired, I asked her to take me on a spa date. She was surprised, but she agreed. And not only has she kept taking me to the spa since then, she even buys me beauty vitamins now. I know some of you are thinking, can't we just have an earnest conversation for how their behavior is hurtful or how their beliefs are harmful? Sure, if you both have the time and energy for that conversation, which during the holiday season seems very unlikely. Holidays are not the time or place to attempt to reform your homophobic or racist relatives or to psychologize why your great aunt is determined to tear you down. It's the time and place to find common ground, to try and bring forward what bonds you to these people. But even when you manage that, I get it, it can be a lot. If you're introverted, speaking from personal experience, it helps even more to pay attention to scheduling because you need to give yourself little recharge breaks. When I know I'm going to deal with someone difficult and it's unavoidable, I try to schedule it so that I have an event with people that I do like right after, both so that I can get away from the unpleasant people faster and so that I can meet up with people who will cheer me up. Finally, if you're feeling overwhelmed despite your best efforts, remember that most social things this season are optional. I know that most of what I've said so far has been premised on a person having difficult relationships with people who still care about them, but I understand that for some people, that just isn't the scenario they're having to live in. If your parents have disowned you, for example, or if you have hateful relatives whom you can't please no matter what you do, it's okay to stop trying. If the people you were born with don't care about you, find the people who do. To illustrate, I'm going to share the stories of two of my friends with their consent, but with certain details changed to protect their privacy. One of them, let's just call her Anne, was born into this incredibly wealthy family. And every Christmas Eve, their great grandfather would dole out these huge checks to each of the grandkids who showed up with their whole immediate family present. It meant a lot to Anne's parents to get that Christmas time check, so she showed up with her siblings every year, even though it was difficult for her. While she liked most of her relatives, there were two in particular who went out of their way to personally attack her under the guise of just wanting to help her. So they criticized her weight most of all, saying things like, "You're wasting that pretty face by being fat, and that's why no boy wants you." Anne was in the closet at the time and in denial about it, but because she's a good Asian girl, she did her best to adapt herself to the feedback. So one year, when she finally hit her goal weight, she showed up to the Christmas Eve party thinking she'd be praised for her new figure. Instead, she was criticized for being in her 20s and still without a partner. One thing one of her aunts said that still ticks her off whenever she tells the story, even though it's been years, is remember, no one wants to buy a Christmas cake after the 25th, which is so weird. I don't know if it's a cultural thing. Like, I had never heard that before, but apparently her aunt told her no one wants to buy a Christmas cake after the 25th. Okay. When Anne finally got herself a boyfriend, she was again excited to show up at the family Christmas party to show him off. He was tall and good looking, a doctor, self-made, and he'd already endeared himself to her parents and siblings. So after 2 decades of trying to win their approval, Anne was so ready to get something out of these people other than more notes for improvement. Her two hateful relatives cornered her boyfriend, and though initially it looked like it was going well, later at dinner they told her in very pitying tones, "Oh, so he doesn't come from money? Well, he has very good manners for someone who was raised in the slums." Wow, what the f? And that, for Anne, was it, and rightly so. When she told me all of this, I was so angry for her. It's been years and I'm still pretty indignant on her behalf. And so were her parents, who stopped asking them to show up at that stupid Christmas party. Check be damned. What are you going to say to people like that, right? Some people are just determined to be negative about you, and that's not within your control. You don't have to take that. The good news is that the incident made Anne realize that she'd internalized a lot of the hate and that she'd basically contorted herself and her life to get approval from people who were never going to give it to her anyway, and that she should just focus on the people in her life who did love and accept her for who she was. She came out to her parents and siblings who'd already kind of known, and her ex-boyfriend, who was very, very cool, later introduced her to Jane. Jane is also in the medical field, and she was thrown out by her parents in college after coming out to them as a lesbian. Since she wasn't allowed to attend family events, every Christmas Eve and New Year after, she made it a point to be in a new location, and in the last 20 years, for that reason, she's been to 16 countries. She and Anne have been together for 5 years now, and ever since pandemic restrictions have been lifted, she and Anne's immediate family have started traveling together for the holidays. That's their tradition now. They have to spend Christmas Eve and the first day of the new year in a different place every time. I share this story not just because it gives me the warm and fuzzies personally, but because it inspired me, and I hope it will inspire you to find the right people and traditions for you if the defaults aren't working for you. So that's it from me for this video and this year, you guys. I hope you got something out of this. Thank you so much if you've made it to the end of this video. Have a great holiday season, and until next time.